Some travelers are getting stopped at airport security in 2026 for things they had absolutely no idea were banned. And we're not talking about obvious items like knives or liquids. Passengers are now being pulled aside for everyday things many people pack without thinking. From travel gadgets and electronics to items that used to be perfectly allowed on flights. The surprising part is that some of these rules have changed recently, which means travelers are only discovering them when airport security opens their bag. So in this video, we're going through 15 things that are now banned at airports and on flights in 2026, including one mistake that happens so often, airline staff warn passengers about it almost every day. And if you travel even occasionally, there's a good chance one of these could be sitting in your bag right now. Let's get started. Number 1. Disposable vapes in some countries. This one has caught a surprising number of travelers off guard recently. For years, many people have packed disposable vapes in their carry-on bags without giving it much thought. But in several countries, the rules around these products have changed quite quickly, and many travelers simply don't realize it until they arrive at the airport. In places like Australia, for example, strict new laws have been introduced around importing disposable vapes. That means travelers arriving with them in their luggage can sometimes have them confiscated by border officials, even if the product was purchased legally somewhere else. The tricky part is that many passengers assume airport security rules are the same everywhere, but vaping laws can vary a lot depending on the country you're flying to, and some places now have very tight restrictions on bringing disposable vapes across the border. Airlines also have their own safety rules for these devices. Because they contain lithium batteries, they usually must be kept in carry-on baggage rather than checked luggage. So before packing a disposable vape for an international trip, it's a good idea to check the rules for your destination country first, because something that seems like a normal travel item could easily end up being taken away from you at the airport. Number 2. Replica weapons and toy guns. This is another item that can quickly cause problems at airport security, and many travelers don't realize it until their bag gets pulled aside for inspection. A lot of people assume that if something is just a toy, a souvenir, or part of a costume, it shouldn't be an issue when traveling. But airport security doesn't look at it that way. If an item closely resembles something that could be mistaken for a real weapon, security officers have to treat it seriously until they can clearly confirm what it is. That means items like toy guns, replica props used for costumes, and even certain realistic-looking souvenirs can trigger extra screening during the security process. When bags pass through the X-ray machines, security staff are trained to stop anything that looks unusual, and objects shaped like firearms or similar items are one of the biggest reasons bags get checked. In most airports, replica guns and similar props are not allowed in carry-on luggage at all. If you try to bring one through the security checkpoint, it will almost certainly be removed from your bag. What surprises many passengers is how realistic some toys and replicas can appear on an X-ray machine. From the security officer's perspective, they have to follow strict procedures, so anything that resembles a firearm or similar item has to be checked carefully. Sometimes travelers bring these items without thinking about it. It might be a toy purchased as a souvenir, something from a costume event, or even a prop used for a photo shoot or film project. But once you reach airport security, those items are very likely to cause delays or be taken away. In some situations, certain replica items may be allowed in checked luggage instead of carry-on bags. However, the rules can vary depending on the airline and the country you're traveling through. Because of that, many travel experts recommend avoiding realistic-looking toy guns or replica props when flying. Even though they may seem harmless when packing your bag, at airport security they can quickly lead to delays and extra screening before you can continue your journey. Number 3. Pepper spray and personal defense sprays. This is another item that surprises a lot of travelers when they reach airport security. In many places around the world, small personal safety sprays like pepper spray or similar products are legal to carry. Because of that, some passengers assume they can simply pack them in their bag when they travel. But when it comes to air travel, the rules are much stricter. Most airlines and airport security authorities do not allow personal defense sprays on flights at all. That includes items like pepper spray, mace, or other small safety sprays designed to temporarily disable someone. Even though these products are often marketed as personal safety tools, they are still considered prohibited items when it comes to aviation security. If security officers find one in a carry-on bag during screening, it will almost always be removed. In some cases, travelers don't even realize they have one with them. It might be sitting in a handbag, a backpack, or attached to a keychain that gets packed automatically when preparing for a trip. But when the bag passes through the X-ray machine, these small canisters are very easy for security staff to spot. Once that happens, the passenger will usually be asked to step aside while the item is removed from their bag. In most situations, the spray cannot travel with the passenger at all. What makes this confusing for travelers is that the rules can vary depending on where you live. In some countries, these sprays are widely sold as personal safety devices, so people assume they're fine to bring along when traveling. However, aviation rules are different from everyday local laws, and airlines generally follow strict international safety guidelines about what can and cannot be carried on board. So before heading to the airport, it's worth taking a quick look inside bags, purses, or keychains for any personal safety sprays that might have been forgotten. Because even though they may be perfectly legal to own, they are not allowed on most flights and will almost certainly be taken away at airport security. Number 4. Alcohol stronger than 70%. This is another rule that surprises many travelers, especially those who enjoy bringing back unique drinks from their trips. A lot of people assume that alcohol is perfectly fine to pack when flying, and in many cases that's true. Passengers can usually bring wine, beer, or regular spirits either in checked luggage or purchased at duty-free stores in the airport. But there is an important limit that many travelers don't know about. Alcohol that is stronger than 70% is generally not allowed on passenger flights at all. That includes certain very high-proof spirits that are sometimes sold as specialty drinks or novelty items in different parts of the world. The reason for this rule is safety. Liquids with extremely high alcohol content are considered flammable, and aviation safety regulations limit how strong alcoholic beverages can be before they are treated as a hazardous item. For most regular drinks, this isn't an issue. Common spirits like whiskey, vodka, rum, or gin are usually well below that limit. But some products, such as overproof alcohol or certain traditional spirits sold in specialty shops, can be much stronger than people expect. Travelers sometimes discover this rule the hard way when they try to pack a bottle they purchased on holiday. During security screening or baggage checks, very high-proof alcohol may be confiscated if it exceeds the allowed limit. Another thing that can confuse passengers is that airport duty-free shops usually only sell alcohol that already meets airline safety rules. But if you buy a bottle somewhere outside the airport, especially in another country, it may not meet those same restrictions. So, if you're planning to bring alcohol home from a trip, it's a good idea to check the strength listed on the label before packing it in your luggage. Because while most alcoholic drinks are allowed on flights, extremely high-proof alcohol can be one item that doesn't make it past airport security. Number 5. Gas-powered curling irons. This is another travel item that surprises many passengers, especially because it's something people often pack without thinking twice. Most travelers are familiar with regular electric hairstyling tools like curling irons or straighteners, and those are usually allowed in both carry-on and checked luggage. But gas-powered curling irons are a little different. Some of these styling tools use small butane cartridges instead of electricity to generate heat. They're designed to be portable and convenient, which makes them popular for travel. However, because they contain a small gas cartridge, airlines treat them differently from standard electric styling tools. In many cases, butane-powered curling irons are restricted or only allowed under certain conditions. Some airlines allow one in carry-on luggage if it has a protective safety cover fitted over the heating element. Other airlines may prohibit them entirely. They are also generally not allowed in checked luggage because of the small fuel cartridge inside. This is where travelers can run into trouble. Someone might pack one of these devices assuming it's just another hairstyling tool, only to find out at the airport that the airline has different rules. Airport security staff are trained to look for items that contain fuel or pressurized cartridges, and these small butane containers will usually appear clearly during screening. When that happens, the passenger may be asked to remove the item from their bag, and in some cases, it may not be allowed to travel at all. Because airline policies can vary, many travel experts recommend checking your airline's rules before packing any styling tool that uses gas or fuel. A regular electric curling iron or straightener is usually the safer option when flying. But if you're planning to bring a butane-powered styling tool on your trip, it's definitely worth checking the airline guidelines first to avoid delays at airport security. Number 6. Self-heating camping meals. This is one of those items that many travelers don't even realize exists until they see it in an outdoor store. But if you're someone who enjoys camping, hiking, or adventure travel, it's something worth knowing about before heading to the airport. Self-heating meals are specially designed food packs that can warm themselves up without needing a stove or microwave. Inside the package is a small heating system that creates heat through a chemical reaction when water is added. Within a few minutes, the food inside the pack becomes hot and ready to eat. These meals are very popular with campers, hikers, and people traveling in remote areas because they're lightweight and easy to use. Some military-style ration packs also use a similar heating system. However, the problem when it comes to flying is that these heating packs generate heat through a chemical reaction. Because of that, aviation safety rules treat them differently from normal food items. Many airlines and airport security authorities do not allow self-heating meals on passenger flights. Even though the food itself is harmless, the heating component inside the package is considered a potential safety concern. That means if one of these meals shows up during the security screening process, it may be removed from the passenger's bag. Sometimes travelers pack these meals without realizing the heating element inside could cause issues at the airport. From the outside, the package often looks like a regular sealed meal, so people assume it's fine to bring along. But once the bag goes through the screening equipment, security staff can identify the heating mechanism inside the packaging. For travelers heading out on camping trips or outdoor adventures, it's usually better to purchase these meals after arriving at your destination instead of packing them in your luggage. That way you can avoid any surprises during the airport screening process. Because while these self-heating meals are very convenient in the outdoors, they're one of those items that often doesn't make it through airport security. Number 7. Hoverboards and electric ridables. This is another item that many travelers don't think about until they try to bring one through the airport. Devices like hoverboards, electric skateboards, and certain types of electric scooters have become very popular over the past few years. They're fun, convenient, and easy to carry around in everyday life. But when it comes to flying, these devices can quickly become a problem. The reason has to do with the type of batteries inside them. Most hoverboards and electric ridables use large lithium batteries. While lithium batteries are common in many electronic devices, the ones used in rideable equipment are often much larger and more powerful than the batteries found in phones or laptops. Because of this, many airlines have strict rules that prohibit these devices from being carried on passenger flights. In fact, a lot of airlines simply do not allow hoverboards or similar electric ridables on board at all, whether in carry-on bags or checked luggage. If someone tries to bring one to the airport, security staff or airline employees may stop it before the passenger boards the aircraft. This can catch travelers by surprise, especially if they're bringing the device home after buying it on holiday or transporting it for a trip. From the outside, it might just look like a personal gadget, but aviation safety rules treat large lithium-powered devices differently from smaller electronics. Some passengers also assume they can check the device into their luggage instead of carrying it on. But because of the battery size, many airlines still will not allow it to travel in the cargo hold either. If you're planning to travel with an electric rideable device, it's very important to check your airline's rules in advance. In many cases, these devices cannot be brought on passenger flights at all, which means they would need to be shipped separately instead. So while hoverboards and electric ridables may be convenient for everyday transportation, they're one item that often isn't allowed to travel with you through the airport. Number 8. Large powder containers on some international flights. This is one rule that many travelers don't expect, especially if they regularly pack items like protein powder, baby powder, or certain cosmetic products. Most people are familiar with the liquid rules at airport security, where liquids in carry-on luggage must be in small containers. But fewer travelers realize that powders can also be restricted on some international flights. In certain countries and on specific routes, powders larger than about 350 milliliters may be subject to extra screening at airport security. This rule can apply to everyday items such as protein powder, powdered supplements, baby formula, cosmetics, or even some types of spices. The main reason behind this rule is that large quantities of powder can be difficult to identify quickly during security screening. Because of that, security authorities sometimes apply additional checks to make sure everything is safe for the flight. When bags pass through the screening machines, large containers of powder may trigger a closer inspection. In some cases, passengers may be asked to open the container so security staff can take a closer look. Sometimes the powder is allowed after additional screening, But in other situations, the item may need to be removed from the carry-on bag. This rule can be especially confusing because it doesn't apply everywhere in exactly the same way. Some airports enforce it more strictly than others, and the rules can vary depending on the destination country. Travelers who frequently carry powdered supplements or large cosmetic powders are often the ones most surprised by this restriction. To avoid delays at the airport, many travel experts recommend packing large powder containers in checked luggage whenever possible. That way, the item is less likely to slow things down during the security screening process. Because while powders may seem harmless when packing your bag, large containers of them can sometimes lead to extra checks before you're allowed through airport security. Number 9. Smart luggage with built-in batteries. This is another item that many travelers were surprised to see restricted in recent years. Smart luggage became very popular because it added extra technology to regular suitcases. Some models included built-in phone chargers, GPS tracking, digital locks, and even small electronic scales, so passengers could weigh their bags before checking them in. For travelers, it sounded like the perfect upgrade to a normal suitcase. But the feature that made these bags smart also created a problem for airlines. Most smart suitcases include a built-in lithium battery to power the electronics inside the bag. And as airlines tightened their safety rules around lithium batteries, these bags started getting more attention from aviation authorities. The main concern is that if a suitcase with a built-in battery is placed in the cargo hold, the battery cannot easily be accessed if something goes wrong. Because of that, many airlines introduced rules saying that smart luggage is only allowed if the battery can be removed from the bag. If the battery can be taken out and carried in the cabin, the suitcase can usually still travel as normal. But if the battery is permanently built into the luggage and cannot be removed, the bag may not be allowed on the flight at all. This rule has caught some passengers off guard at check-in counters, especially if they purchased a smart suitcase a few years ago and didn't realize the airline policies had changed. Some travelers only find out about the restriction when airline staff ask them to remove the battery before the bag can be checked. If the battery cannot be removed, the passenger may have to find another way to send the suitcase or leave it behind. So if you own smart luggage, it's a good idea to check whether the battery can be easily removed before traveling. Because while these high-tech suitcases can be very convenient, airlines now require the battery to be removable in order for the bag to fly. Number 10. Damaged electronics with swollen batteries. This is something that many travelers don't think about because most people are used to bringing their phones, laptops, tablets, and other electronics on flights without any problems. However, if one of those devices has a damaged or swollen lithium battery, it may not be allowed on the aircraft. Lithium batteries are used in many everyday electronics, and under normal conditions, they are considered safe to carry on flights. But when a battery becomes damaged or starts to swell, it can become unstable. Airlines and airport security staff are trained to watch for signs of this because damaged batteries can pose a safety risk during a flight. One of the most common signs is when the battery inside a device begins to expand. This can cause the phone or laptop casing to bulge slightly, the screen to lift away from the frame, or the device to feel thicker than usual. Sometimes the battery may also cause the device to overheat or lose power very quickly. If airport staff notice that an electronic device appears to have a swollen battery, they may ask the passenger about it or inspect the device more closely. In some cases, the passenger may be asked not to bring that device on the flight. This situation can be frustrating for travelers who rely on their electronics during a trip, especially if they didn't realize the battery had started to swell. It's also one of the reasons many airlines advise passengers to keep electronics in carry-on bags rather than checked luggage. If something unusual happens with a battery, it can be noticed more quickly in the cabin. Before heading to the airport, it's a good idea to check that your phone, laptop, or other devices are in good condition. Because while electronics are normally allowed on flights, devices with damaged or swollen batteries may not make it through airport security. Number 11. Drone batteries in checked luggage. Drones have become extremely popular with travelers over the past few years. Many people bring them along on trips to capture aerial photos and videos of beaches, cities, and scenic landscapes. But if you're traveling with a drone, there's an important rule about the batteries that many passengers don't realize. Drone batteries are almost always lithium batteries, and aviation safety rules treat loose lithium batteries very carefully. Because of this, drone batteries are generally not allowed in checked luggage. Instead, they must be carried in your carry-on bag inside the cabin. The reason for this rule is that if a lithium battery were to malfunction, it can be noticed and handled much more quickly inside the cabin than in the cargo hold of the aircraft. If the battery were packed in checked luggage underneath the plane, crew members would not have easy access to it during the flight. This rule can catch travelers off guard, especially if they pack their drone and all the accessories together in one bag before heading to the airport. If airline staff notice spare drone batteries inside a checked suitcase, they may ask the passenger to open the bag and remove them before the luggage can be accepted. Sometimes, this happens right at the check-in counter, and it can slow things down if the passenger has to repack their bags. There are also limits on how many lithium batteries you can carry and how large they can be. Many airlines recommend placing spare batteries in protective cases or covering the battery contacts so they cannot accidentally touch other metal objects. For drone owners, the easiest way to avoid problems is to keep the batteries safely stored in your carry-on bag when traveling. Because while drones themselves are usually allowed on flights, their lithium batteries must stay with you in the cabin rather than going into checked luggage. Number 12. Loose lithium batteries without protection. This is another rule that many travelers don't realize until they reach the airport. Lithium batteries are used in a huge number of everyday electronics. Things like cameras, drones, portable lights, power banks, and even some travel gadgets all rely on these types of batteries. Because they are so common, many passengers pack spare batteries in their bags without thinking much about it. But aviation safety rules require that loose lithium batteries be properly protected when you travel with them. The reason is that if the metal contacts on a battery accidentally touch another metal object, it can create a short circuit. That short circuit can generate heat, which is something airlines want to prevent during a flight. To reduce that risk, spare batteries must be packed in a way that keeps the contacts from touching other items. Many travelers do this by placing each battery in a small protective case, using the original packaging, or covering the battery contacts with tape. Another important rule is that loose lithium batteries are generally not allowed in checked luggage. Instead, they must be carried in your cabin bag where the crew can respond quickly if something unusual happens. Security staff often see spare batteries during the screening process, especially when passengers are carrying camera gear or other electronics. If the batteries are not protected properly, travelers may be asked to take them out of their bag and store them more safely before continuing through the checkpoint. This can slow things down at the airport, particularly during busy travel periods. So if you're bringing spare batteries for cameras, drones, or other electronics, it's worth taking a moment to pack them properly before heading to the airport. Because while lithium batteries are allowed on flights, they must be stored safely to travel with you in the cabin. Number 13. Power banks in checked luggage. This is one of the most common mistakes travelers make at airports today. Power banks have become extremely popular because they make it easy to charge phones, tablets, and other devices while traveling. Many people automatically pack one when they're heading on a trip. But when it comes to flying, power banks are treated very differently from most other electronics. Power banks contain lithium batteries, and aviation safety rules do not allow spare lithium batteries in checked luggage. That means power banks must always be carried in your cabin bag instead of being packed in a suitcase that goes into the cargo hold. The reason for this rule is safety. If a lithium battery were to overheat or malfunction during a flight, it can be noticed and handled much more quickly inside the cabin. In the cargo hold, it would be much harder for the crew to access the battery if something unusual happened. Because of this, airlines and airport security staff are trained to look for power banks inside checked luggage. If one is discovered during baggage screening, the airline may need to locate the passenger and ask them to remove it before the suitcase can travel on the aircraft. At busy airports, this can sometimes delay luggage from being loaded onto the plane while the issue is sorted out. Many travelers accidentally pack power banks in checked bags because they forget they placed one in a backpack, camera bag, or suitcase pocket earlier. Others assume that since phones and laptops are allowed in checked luggage, a power bank would be fine as well. But because power banks are essentially spare batteries, the rules for them are stricter. To avoid problems at the airport, the safest approach is to always keep your power bank in your carry-on bag. That way, it stays with you in the cabin and follows the airline safety rules for lithium batteries during the flight. Number 14. Using power banks during flights on some airlines. Most travelers know they can bring a power bank in their carry-on bag. But what many people don't realize is that some airlines have started introducing rules about how those power banks can be used during the flight. In recent years, Airlines around the world have been paying closer attention to lithium battery safety. As portable chargers have become more powerful, some airlines have added extra precautions when it comes to using them on board. Because of this, certain airlines now limit or discourage using power banks while the aircraft is in the air. Others may ask passengers to avoid charging devices from power banks during certain parts of the flight, such as takeoff and landing. The reason behind these policies is precaution. Lithium batteries are very common in modern electronics, but airlines prefer to reduce any unnecessary risk during the flight. By setting rules around how portable chargers are used, airlines aim to keep everything running safely on board. This can be confusing for travelers because the rules can vary between airlines. On some flights, you may see passengers charging phones from power banks without any issues, while on others, the crew may ask passengers not to use them. That's why it's always a good idea to check your airline's guidance before flying if you plan to rely on a portable charger during the trip. Most airlines still allow power banks to be carried in the cabin, but how they can be used during the flight may depend on the airline's own safety policies. So while portable chargers are incredibly useful when traveling, it's worth remembering that airline rules around their use can sometimes be a little different from what passengers expect. Number 15. Carry-on bags that get gate-checked with batteries inside. This is one of the most common mistakes travelers make, and many people only learn about it right at the boarding gate. Sometimes when a flight is very full, airline staff will ask passengers to place their carry-on bags into the aircraft's cargo hold. This is known as gate-checking a bag. From the passenger's point of view, it might seem like no big deal. The bag simply gets tagged at the gate and placed underneath the plane instead of going into the overhead bin. But there's one important detail many travelers don't realize. If your carry-on bag contains items like power banks, spare lithium batteries, or certain electronic accessories, those items are not allowed to go into the cargo hold. That means, before the bag is taken from you at the gate, those batteries must be removed and kept with you in the cabin. Airline staff often remind passengers about this when they're collecting carry-on bags, but during busy boarding situations, it's easy for people to forget. Sometimes a traveler hands over their bag quickly, only to remember afterward that their power bank or spare batteries are still inside. Because of the safety rules around lithium batteries, airlines need to make sure those items stay in the cabin where they can be monitored during the flight. So if your carry-on bag is ever taken at the gate, it's always worth taking a quick moment to check inside first and remove any power banks or spare batteries before handing it over. It's a small step, but it can prevent problems and help your boarding process go much more smoothly. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more airport tips and travel advice that can make your next trip a lot easier.